how is it going, Slasher fans? Thank you for ending your weekend with us. You're listening to the one and only Slasher Studios webcast. Hope all who are tuned in tonight are Slumber Party Massacre fans. So the show tonight is solely dedicated to this series. We have a lot to talk about. We have a very special guest tonight, so hopefully everybody's ready for a great show. I know I am. My name is Steve Gold. Next to me is Kevin Summerfield. How are you doing tonight, Kevin?
I'm doing well.
That's awesome. One big thing I would just want to tell all the listeners who haven't already known, if you are following us on Facebook and check out Slasher Studios regularly, you will know that our short film Teddy was in the Chicago Fear Fest last weekend, Friday 13th, 14th, and we were able to secure the Audience Favorite Award, which is just an amazing feeling to know that there's so many people who just loved our little film. And I just really want to thank, not only Fear Fest itself, but the fans and the filmmakers who, stood by us and voted.
Yeah, it was a great honor to be named audience favorite. It was pretty amazing, and we actually just found it out on Friday, so definitely good news.
Yeah, so like I said before, lots to talk about. Topic tonight, as I stated earlier, Slumber Party Massacre. We're talking about all three films. And our special guest is Tony Brown. Kevin, you want to give a rundown of our friend Tony quick?
Yeah, Tony, how are you doing tonight?
Pretty good. How are you guys?
Not too bad at all. So, Tony, you are a huge fan of the Slumber Party Massacre series. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you run one of the best Slumber Party Massacre website out there. I actually check it out on a nearly weekly basis. Could you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, it's hawkstatter.com, and I started it back in 2001. Haven't updated it recently, but the website lives on through the Facebook group, the Old Hawkstatter Place, where we have people such as yourself and Jeffrey Lee and Devin Whitehead, and lots of other great fans, and Beverly Grey posts a lot on the group. The website is dedicated to all three films in the Slumber Party Massacre series, and it's also dedicated to the Swarty House Massacre series and Hard to Die, and also talk about movies that are related or loosely related, like Cheerleader Massacre, Last Slumber Party, Swarty Babes, and the Slime Bowl Bolorama. Have interviews on the website with people such as Kelly Maroney, Sally Madison, Amy Jones. Also have an interview with Linnea Quigley, and there's actually a documentary coming out soon about Linnea Quigley and Brink Stevens and Michelle Bauer, kind of, not really related to Slumber Party Massacre, but Brink Stevens was in the original Slumber Party Massacre. It's Screaming in High Heels, The Rise and Fall of the Scream Queen. I worked on that and gave them a lot of footage, helped them produce it. It was directed by Jason Paul Collum. It should be coming on Chiller TV soon, and will be coming out by Synapsis Films DVD probably pretty soon, sometime this year. And the website's just a dedication just overall to Slumber Party Massacre and Swarty House Massacre, and it's just always been a passion of mine, and that's why I began the website.
Very nice. Yeah, like I said, I check it out on a regular basis. I fell in love with the series, well, especially the first one, at a very, very, very young age. So I've been a huge fan, not only just of Slumber Party Massacre, but, just 80s slashers in general. There's just kind of almost, for lack of a better word, just kind of an innocence to 80s slasher films. There was a time when it wasn't, just about money. It was, really just about getting having a good time and just getting, experience and building up your resume. And I think that's something that's kind of missing from horror movies today.
Right. I think a lot of horror films take themselves too seriously, and there's just a certain charm to the 80s horror films that's just missing in a lot of recent films.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I completely agree. And I think, especially nowadays, or not so much now, but a couple of years ago when, the kind of, torture movies were really popular, for a good, 5-6 years there, horror films just weren't fun anymore. Who wants to go see, a brutal, mean-spirited horror film that's just not any fun to sit through.
Right, like Hostel and Hills Have Eyes remakes are two films that pop into my head.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not my kind of film. I mean, I understand that there are people out there that like that kind of thing, but I've just never been a big fan of that.
I gotta agree with you there. I mean, a lot of that stuff, it is, beautifully shot. Like some of the, like Hostel and Hills Have Eyes, that remake, they're shot really well. They're made really well, but you still have to have that emotional connect to them, which, like you're saying, Kevin, you just don't get into them. You just don't feel them. So yeah, I'm on the same boat with you. I just don't have that emotional connection to those movies as much as I do the more lighthearted ones.
Right.
And
so, go
ahead.
I was just going to say, Slumber Party Massacre, the series in a whole, is pretty lighthearted. Part 3 is probably the darkest of the series. You've got characters that you become very attached to, and this is something that, I discussed with Brandy Burkett and Hope Marie Carlton and Beverly Grey and Sally Madison when we were doing the commentary, is that, they all did such a very, excellent job. And the characters you really grew attracted to. Maria Ford, for instance, it's so brutal when she's finally actually killed. And it's just very disturbing. But then again, you've got movies that are coming out nowadays. Not all of them are bad, but it's like torture porn. That's something that I don't really care too much for. It's just kind of just like gore and all the violence just on for display, and you don't really have a chance to really, get any kind of real connection with the characters that you're seeing on screen.
Yeah, and I completely agree. And it looks like we have another caller on the line, so let's see who's joining us tonight.
Hi, Tony, and hi, everyone. This is Beverly Grey, and Tony urged me to call in, and I'm really happy to do that and talk about Slumber Party Massacre 2 and particularly 3, because I worked on both films.
Hi, Beverly.
Hi.
Well, I'm glad you called in today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to call in.
So, Beverly Grey, how are you doing tonight? My name is Kevin. I'm one of the hosts of the show tonight. I'm here with Steve.
Hello, Beverly. Great to have you on tonight.
Pleasant to meet you, although I'm having a hard time hearing everything you say, so forgive me if my answers are a little bit weird, but I'm doing great.
Awesome. So how did you become part of the Slumber Party Massacre series?
Well, I was working for Roger. I've worked for Roger Corman several times in the course of my checkered career in Hollywood. I worked for him in the 70s and did such films as Big Bad Mama and Death Race 2000. And then I came back as his story editor from 1986 to 1994. And in the course of that period, when video was becoming popular, we were making lots of movies. We made over 20 movies a year with a very small staff. So, of course, I had my hands on all sorts of pictures. I made 170 movies in all, and the Slumber Party movies were among them.
Awesome. What was it like to work for Roger Corman?
Working for Roger was hectic, and as somebody once said, when you worked for Roger, you were constantly having the worst day of your life, but in between having the worst day of your life, you were having a great time. So that, in a way, kind of sums it up. It was very hectic. It was very dazzling. You never knew what was going to happen from day to day, and yet you wouldn't have missed that experience for anything.
I think he was pretty intense on set, and did he? How much one-on-one time did you have with him? A lot?
Well, I had a fair amount with Roger, but I should tell you that the filmmakers, the directors, and the actors in my day, and in the 90s anyway, had relatively little with him. He knew what he wanted, He, in some cases, knew the directors. In the case of Sally Madison, for instance, on Slumber Party Massacre, she had been one of his office assistants, so he certainly knew her well. But once he saw that you knew what you were doing and that you weren't going to fall behind schedule, he pretty much left you alone until the picture was ready to be edited, and then sometimes he got a little more heavily involved at that point. But there was a lot of individual autonomy when you worked for Roger in that period, provided that you were going the Roger Corman route, that you were thinking in a Roger Corman way. And we all knew how to do that.
Right.
That meant, yeah. That meant TNA, that meant humor, that meant fast-paced, that meant never, ever, ever going over budget.
I mean, I think that's definitely something that's missing from movies today. I mean, we were actually just talking about that today. I mean, there aren't really, studio heads today that are saying, oh, let's take a chance on you. I know that you've never done anything before, but now, I mean, it's kind of a double-edged sword that, you have to have experience, but at the same time, like, nobody's going to hire you if you don't have experience.
Right. Well, one of the fascinating things about Roger in the 80s and the 90s and even earlier was you certainly did not have to be a film school graduate. He liked bright people. He liked to hire women, which I've always found very interesting. He liked them as his assistants. He liked them around the office. And if he thought you were intelligent and he saw you filling the bill, you could get a lot of tremendous opportunity. Someone like Gail Ann Hurd, who was basically, an economics type major. She came in as his assistant, which meant you answered his phone, then you paid his bills, and then he gave her more and more responsibilities around the studio. The next thing you know, she's producing Terminators. So some of us got opportunities we never would have dreamed of, and without any kind of formal film school education.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely a wonderful thing that's just, like I said, that's just not done today. And,
right.
I mean, it's just, I don't know, I really miss that kind of part of the film, making process. I guess back to Slumber Party Massacre. What exactly did you have to do with each of the films?
Well, Slumber Party Massacre 2 was masterminded by Deborah Brock, who was a young woman with a lot of experience. She'd been the head of his studio, and she knew a lot about the technical side of filmmaking, and she was smart and clever, and she knew what she wanted to do, and she had that rock and roll element going. My job as Roger's story editor was to work with her on the script, but it wasn't difficult work because she so clearly knew what she was after. The Slumber Party Massacre 3 was a very interesting situation because, as was sometimes the case in the Corman universe, it came up really quickly. Roger hated to have his studio sitting there idle, even if it was around Christmas time, let's say. So if there was a slot, he'd say, we got to make something. We got to make a movie. All right, let's make another Slumber Party movie. And Sally Madison, who, as I said, was his assistant and had other jobs in the office in the kind of production, well, kind of a supervisory capacity, she had wanted to direct. And he said, okay, Sally, you're going to direct this movie. Here's what it's going to be about. And Catherine Siren, who wanted to write, very smart and ambitious young woman with absolutely no formal film school education, he said, Catherine, you're going to write it. Sally, you're going to direct it. And so it happened very, very fast. It happened so fast that we were going into pre-production before the script was finished, and there were a lot of leaps and some redos in the case of the ending, for instance. So there was a lot happening very quickly. And the story that Tony likes a lot, I know, and that unfortunately got cut out of the DVD collection, but it's a great story. It's a very personal story for me because it was decided that in the case of Slumber Party Massacre 3, that the driller killer was going to be a boys next door type, but something obviously horribly wrong with him. And, of course, you've got to give a clue as to what's horribly wrong with him. And that the idea, of course, was that somehow in some way he had been molested perhaps or in some way abused by a sinister uncle. And the key, the aha moment in the film is seeing the photograph of this cute little kid and this rather shady-looking uncle. So they needed a photograph. And I had a son. I still have a son, thank goodness. He's a lot older now, but at the time he was about 7, and he was a really cute little guy. So I was asked if I would bring him to the Corman studio and have him photographed for this picture. And I said, sure, that sounds like fun. And I brought him down, and because he was very friendly, there was no problem for him crawling all over this production assistant at the studio, who was going to stand in for, I think, his Uncle Billy. You know, and they put shades on him in some of the pictures, and he looked a little weird. But he was a very, very nice guy. In fact, he had kids of his own, so no problem. My son climbed all over him, gave him hugs. They took a lot of pictures and used one of them for the film. But the part that strikes me as interesting is that after we'd done that, and again, the production dates are coming very, very close, and they said, you know, this maybe isn't enough. Maybe it's too subtle. Maybe we need some scenes. So Catherine wrote some scenes in which Uncle Billy and this little boy interacted, and nothing evil happens that you see with your own eyes, but there's innuendo, several inches thick in all of these scenes. You knew something is not right. And they said, would your son be willing to perform these scenes? And my first thought was, hey, this is fun. My kid's going to be an actor. I was very flattered and pleased, and I thought he'd have fun with it. And then my second thought was not the showbiz mom thought. It was the good parent mom saying, wait a minute, maybe somehow these scenes will kind of enter into his psyche and will confuse and disturb him, and maybe someday, years from now, I will regret this very much. So I realized that I couldn't let him do this, and I told them, and they said, we're sorry, we see. And as it happens, they didn't have time to shoot the scenes anyway, so they didn't recast. The scenes just aren't there. But they were written, and it, for me as a parent, as well as for me as a lover of movies, it was a very interesting moment when I had to decide between the two.
Yeah, that's kind of an amazing kind of complex you have in that situation. You know, on one hand you want to do something, for your career, and then you also have to think of, you're a parent now and how that's going to affect, your child and your family. So that's definitely, something, everybody has to think about when it's comes to their kids and their jobs. So that's kind of cool how, it played into Slumber Party Massacre. Quick question for... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was simply going to say that in the course of my career as a writer, I've talked to a lot of child stars and former child stars and the parents of them, and I'm always very, very leery about parents who put their children into some of these circumstances. Of course, there's a lot of great movies that wouldn't have gotten made if we didn't have kids looking like they're in a great deal of danger in one way or another. But I found that I couldn't do it. And years later, in fact, thanks to Tony and Jason and everyone putting together the box set, I finally sat my son down. He's 30 now, and said, you might have been curious about that picture years ago, so we sat down and watched it together.
That's funny. That's amazing. Yeah, it's great behind-the-scenes story that, nobody else really knows.
Yeah.
Yeah. Quick question for Tony, while we're kind of on the scenes of, stuff, or while we're on the topic of kind of behind-the-scenes stuff, do you know anything about the differences between the working script and the final film? What may have changed? What may have changed for the better or worse?
Well, it was originally titled Stab in the Dark, but it was always pretty much intended to be Slumber Party Massacre 3.
Right.
Now, I did get to look at the script. Sally Madison allowed me to make some copies of it, and you can see, little screen grabs here and there during the documentary. Now, the Uncle Billy scenes are in there. It's kind of more of an elaboration of when Ken is kind of hallucinating when he's knocked out on the floor, and he finally comes up and he, batters Diane and she dies at the very end. It's kind of like him and Uncle Billy, basically Uncle Billy getting close to the camera, just kind of like talking to Uncle Billy. Like Beverly had mentioned, it wasn't anything particularly evil. It was just kind of like, just to kind of show you something's not right here.
Right.
And then also with the guy who gets his, I can't even remember his name. That's pretty bad. The one that gets his legs bashed in at the lumber yard. He originally just disappears and then just ends up dead against the window. And then at the very end, Maria Ford, Brandy Burkett, and Keely Christian were all meant to survive originally, and Devin Jenkins' death scene was added as well early on in the movie.
Yeah, and I remember being surprised by that because I knew the genre at this point that, you have to, and then there was one, the final girl, and I said, well, how come all these other girls are surviving? And they said, well, we thought we wanted to do something different. And we couldn't kill off Maria because all of us who worked for Concord in those days knew Maria. She was certainly a presence around the office, and we all felt a kind of maybe maternal feelings for her. She was an interesting and complex person, and we didn't want to kill her off. But finally it was decided that aesthetically, and I'm sure Roger had a part in this, you have to kill her off. It just had to happen.
Right. It's probably the most powerful part.
Yeah.
Yeah. We actually have another caller online right now. Sorry for the wait. How are you doing tonight, caller?
Hi, it's Heidi Kozak calling.
How are you?
Hi, good. How are you doing?
We're doing excellent. Thanks for calling in. I'm Steve with
Thanks
Kevin.
for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you, Heidi. I haven't seen you since Sleepless Nights. I'm glad that you called in.
So Heidi, you worked on Slumber Party Massacre 2. Do you have any behind-the-scenes stories that we might not know about?
Oh, we had a lot of fun. It was a really, really great shoot. For a lot of us, it was one of our first movies, and we just had a great time together. It was really fun playing Sally. I loved the part. I got to do a lot of special things like learning to play the drums, which the casting director, Kevin, when I tried out for the part, they said, do you know how to play the drums by any chance? Because we really want Sally to be the drummer. And I was like, oh, no problem. I my stepfather was a drummer, and I bit around drums, and, sure, no problem at all. Of course, I, never played the drums at all. But I got a crash course in it and had a great time learning. So that was fun. And then the other thing they asked me when I auditioned for the part was if I was claustrophobic. And then later I found out that I had to have this prosthetic on my face for the zit scene, the famous zit scene. So that ended up, they thought I was going to be in that cast on my face for maybe 6 hours, and it turned out to be more like 12 hours. And they were feeding me through a straw, so that was really, really fun and funny.
Yeah, and I think that that is definitely one of the most memorable moments of the entire series. I know that whenever I talk to anyone about the second one, they always mention that zit scene. So, I mean, you're a part of horror movie history.
Oh, thank you. It was a pretty funny scene.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Heidi, I am a huge fan. I love Slumber Party Massacre 2. Friday the 13th Part 7 is actually my favorite of the Friday the 13th sequels. And I'm a big fan of Society, too. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I know it doesn't have completely to do with Slumber Party Massacre, but I just wanted to say that.
Oh, that's so sweet of you. Thank you. That's so nice.
And Heidi looks just as young in person as she did in Slumber Party Massacre 2.
As a bit, huh?
Well, it was really fun getting together with everyone when we did the commentary for the DVD release. We were just all so excited to see each other as people were coming in and out of the studio. Everyone was hugging and I think it was a very positive vibe set, so everyone was really happy to see each other again.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, to kind of, I guess, right on, Kevin's coattails a little bit. Yeah, I loved your performance in that film, and definitely by far and away my favorite character. You came across very likable, and I just really enjoyed watching you in this performance.
Thank you. I really saw Sally as kind of a surfer girl, and Deborah she was a wonderful director and just created such a great family on the set, and just let us have a really good time with our characters. And I liked that we got to have some humor, which was really nice. I think it made everyone, all the characters, more memorable and more likable to have some humor in it and more lovable.
Yeah. Quick question for you, as far as having a good time on set. Was there much improv, ad-lib during any shoots?
There wasn't a lot of improv. Everyone's I would say the only improv was maybe with the slumber party scene. We had a lot of fun with the whole thing with the corn dogs and the feathers and the champagne and the dancing. And they did, of course, the dancing was really fun. And everyone by then, we didn't shoot that scene until we'd been working together a little bit. And everyone was just very comfortable with each other, and we just had a really good time. And I think it shows on film. We just got really silly.
Are you still in touch with the cast and crew?
I think because of the wonders of Facebook, a lot of us have started talking, and we think most of us were out of touch for a long time. But after we ran into each other when we were shooting the DVD commentary, everybody started getting Facebook requests, so we've gotten back in touch a little bit.
Nice.
It was really fun to see, Don Daniel, the producer, was I was very close to him on the set. He was a really great guy, and so it was fun to see him, and everybody was so nice.
Right.
Amazing.
Don actually had some behind-the-scenes footage that we were going to use for the DVD, but sadly it wasn't able to be used.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah.
What was the behind-the-scene footage?
Well, I remember it was a scene with the corn dogs and all the dancing and everything, and it's when you girls hear the two guys come in. It was basically that scene, and I believe there was an interview with you. You're like, "Hi, I'm Heidi Kozak, and we're on the set of Don't Let Go," and they showed Crystal Bernard and Kimberly MacArthur. It was about 3 minutes of footage that he had shown me, but never got to see the rest of it.
Oh, by the way, I should mention one thing about Deborah Brock is, aside from her abilities as a writer and director, she really is a great talker. And when I was writing my book on Roger Corman, which is called Roger Corman, Blood-Sucking Vampires, Flesh-Eating Cockroaches, and Driller Killers, so the Slumber Party films actually get into the title of my book, which is considered a definitive one on Roger and his empire. But I loved talking to Deborah Brock. She was one of those people who could come up with the most pithy and original ways of telling you what life was like. So any quote from her was one that I was going to use. And we spoke for 3 hours, so she's all over that book. And I'm very fond of Deborah.
Me too. I'm a big Deborah fan. She was really a good director, just gave us great direction, but a lot of respect and created just a wonderful atmosphere on the set.
Yeah, that's great. Just a quick heads up to all our listeners. We are going to get cut off from our live show in about 40 seconds, but you can always go back and listen to the rest of the show if you check out the archive version later. So be sure to do that. Quick question, again, for all you guys, really. We'll kind of relate this to the second films. So, Heidi, if you want to go first, then we kind of go down the list with Tony and Beverly as well. Wednesday week, as we know, had music featured in the film. It was a strong point or a strong piece of the second film in my view. I'm just wondering how you guys were I guess, fans of the band at that time, if you even knew who they were, and maybe, Tony, if you could maybe go into, I guess, what the band took out from this film, if they felt it was a good idea to do it, or if they kind of wish they hadn't done it.
So I know Wednesday Week was very willing to have their music featured in the film. Christy Callan was also at the shoot at Shout Factory, and she had actually seen a video that I had pieced together for If Only, and she actually, everyone signed my Laserdisc for Slumber Party Massacre 2, and she said that, you know, she and the other members of Wednesday Week were really big fans of the video and everything, but as far as I know, they were more than happy and willing to have their music featured in the film, and that's one of the things I get asked about the most about the series is the music from Part 2.
Yeah, I think it helped launch them. I didn't know Wednesday Week before I started working on the music with Kevin, learning how to play the drums, because with the drums you can't really fake it. And I listened to the, over and over and over, If Only, and I loved it. It was a great song, and I think afterwards people discovered them from the movie.
I haven't much to say on this topic, but I know that Deborah was very attuned to music, very interested in it, and I should mention that one of the other films she made for Roger Corman was a sequel to Hollywood Boulevard, which was called Hollywood Boulevard Forever. And
well,
again,
actually, it was Rock and Roll High School Forever. I'm sorry.
You're right. I'm sorry. I made so many movies. It was Rock and Roll High School Forever. Right.
They all blend together.
They do.
Okay, and then I actually have a question for Heidi. Heidi, how was the set of Slumber Party Massacre 2 different from other horror movies or just movies in general that you worked on?
Well, I would say it was one of the closest sets that I'd ever worked on. Everyone just really liked each other, and it was very relaxed, low pressure. Deborah was able to get what she wanted very quickly. We didn't do a lot of takes, so it didn't feel like a very high pressured situation. She was really creative, and it just was. I just have nothing but positive feelings about that shoot. It was one of the first things I'd ever done, one of my first jobs, and I just couldn't have been happier, and I think everyone felt like that. They just were really happy to be working, and it was just fun, and I loved my death scene, being drilled with the guitar. It was just doing a scene like that for an actress, it's just a blast. It's just an absolute blast. So fun.
That's my favorite death scene in Slumber Party Massacre 2, actually.
Yeah, it was just great.
When I saw Deborah at the taping, she reminded me that I just couldn't visualize what this was going to be like. I'd seen the original Slumber Party Massacre, of course, but a guitar electric drill, I just couldn't picture it. But she knew what she wanted, and she was right.
Yeah, I saw that. I guess one question, if any of you guys know it, I know from watching the behind the scenes that Deborah sold the guitar on eBay. Does anyone know how much that went for?
No, I didn't know. I would have bid on it.
I had no idea.
Yeah, I believe it went close to 1,000 or a little over 1,000, but
wow.
I can't quite remember. It went up there, though.
That's amazing. Heidi, did you put your denim cutoffs on eBay?
No, I didn't. I didn't think anyone would want what was left of them, but but I still have my pink drumsticks.
Oh, very cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's like when I keep everything. I keep something from every shoot I've ever done. So I have either a clothing item or something, and those pink drumsticks are in my bedroom still, and I love them.
That is so cool. I know, me and Kevin made a few short films ourselves, and it's always cool to, bring something home with you that you've been filming that's been on set, prop or whatever. It's just something cool to, have on a shelf, and you look back on it, and you remember the good times of filming. So yeah, that's really cool. You were able to keep those.
Yeah, well, I actually bought those myself, and I used them while I was rehearsing with learning all of the music. And then I brought them into Deborah, and I'm like, what do you think? And I remember she just went crazy. She loved them.
And the wardrobe lady was actually cutting your jean shorts shorter and shorter every day, right?
We had a little practical joke going back and forth between the two of us because she wanted to dress me like Annie Hall. Annie Hall that look was really big then, but it just wasn't right for my character. And so when I went in for wardrobe, she was like, okay, I'm going to dress you. You're going to wear, this whole Annie Hall look. And I said, I love that look, but Sally's like this surfer girl from Venice Beach, and, I just picture her in jean shorts with her, drumstick stuck in her back pocket and a casual T-shirt and just just a total beach girl. And so we were kind of at odds about that, and then we asked Deborah, and she's like, no, I want her to wear exactly what she wore for the audition. She came in like a beach bunny, and I love that, so just go for that. So we were going back and forth about that for a while, and so then my jeans shorts kept getting shorter and shorter every day, and I'm like, okay, she got back at me. This is my torture.
Yeah, it's pretty good prank right there.
Yeah, very good prank.
Yeah. So Tony, Beverly, Heidi, can't thank you guys enough for joining us tonight. Unfortunately, I hate to say it, but we are running out of time. So we're going to have to cut it pretty shortly. Kevin, if you have any final words?
Well, I guess for all three of you, while you're on the show and we got some listeners out there, is there anything that you guys have coming up that you guys would like to plug?
Well, here's what I'd like to mention. It's what I've been doing for the last year. Aside from writing books, I started a blog which is called Beverly and Movie Land, and I have several posts on the Slumber Party Massacre. One, pretty much the story I've told you about my son, and the other about the fans of Slumber Party Massacre and why certain slices of our population love this particular movie. So I would urge you to check that out. It's at www.beverlyandmovieland.com.
Awesome. Definitely will.
Very cool, Beverly. That sounds awesome.
Thank you. Yeah. Please do read it, Heidi. I'd be honored.
I have nothing to plug other than after taking quite a long break from acting, I am getting back into acting and producing, so hopefully I'll have something to share in the future.
That's awesome.
Bravo. Good for you.
Well, the only thing I would probably have to plug was something that I mentioned earlier in the show, and that was Screaming in High Heels, The Rise and Fall of the Scream Queen. I thought that turned out very well.
Yeah, I can't wait to check it out. It sounds like a very interesting documentary.
Yeah, it's very well put together.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely have to check that out. So once again, thanks all three of you guys for calling in. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. And thanks for sharing your stories on the series.
Thanks for having me on. And Tony, thanks for doing such a great job of keeping Slumber Party Massacre, all of our stories alive. So thank you.
Oh, well, thank you, Heidi.
All right.
And
thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, Tony, for inviting me, and thanks, guys, for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us tonight.
You guys definitely made an amazing show tonight. So, yeah, great having you guys on. As for all our listeners out there, once again, thank you guys for tuning in, and definitely check out Slumber Party Massacre 1, 2, and 3 if you haven't already, and you'll see what we're talking about and why we had such a good time on tonight's show. So once again, Tony, Beverly, and Heidi, thank you for calling in. We appreciate it, and hope to talk to you guys soon.
Bye-bye.
Excellent. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, talk to you later.